Aloha, aloha, aloha. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, come on in. The mighty middle, folks. The mighty middle. Unc, say hi.
Welcome, welcome everybody. Hey, just to say howdy, thanks for joining us. You know why we're here today? We're here today because nobody is talking to the 75% of Americans who make up what we call the heart and the soul of our nation.
The
Talking about
mighty
the workers,
middle.
the
We are the
farmers.
mighty middle.
That's right. The nurses, teachers, students, veterans who make up what we call this mighty middle of our country. And we have allowed ourselves to be tricked, to be manipulated, exploited, and abandoned by those in power in this country. We've allowed them to pit us against each other over petty bullshit and trying to keep us from coming together and really focusing on what we care about most, which is creating a nation where everybody gets a fair shake, where everybody can eat healthy food, where our kids can grow up together, and where we can have a nation of kindness and compassion, where everybody can bring out their greatest potential. What do
That's
you
right.
say, Professor?
That's right. That's right. We're the mighty middle. We're the people who are caught in the middle between the people who are benefiting from our struggle. And that's what we're here for. We're here to come and bring a voice, build a community of the people who are in the mighty middle, who are tired of being divided, who are tired of being played upon each other and preyed upon. We're here to come together and use our voice and our energy to build momentum and power. So that's what we're here. Join the community, folks. Uncle, tell them who you are. Tell them what you got going on today.
All right, man. It's a beautiful day here in Seattle, I got to tell you. And again, this is the conversation. We want conversation, not confrontation. This is the chatter that matters. And actually, I wanted to, Professor, why don't you say a few words about yourself? Introduce yourself to the folks.
Look, I go by the name Professor, but I've been thinking about this, and I don't get caught up in titles. People call me Professor because I work at a lot of major universities across the country, some internationally. I do a lot of work in the field of communication study, theory, and human interaction. So that's why we're here to build community and build conversation like this, all right? But I don't get caught up in titles. I don't care about professor and titles. What I care about is changing people's lives. That's why I am a professor, because I like when you come through the classes, you get the degrees and you get the jobs, and you're able to change your family, your community, your living situation, all of that. Those are the things that I care about. That's why I do what I do, and that's why people just nickname me the professor, because I have a title from a job. That's it. Other than that, I'm just here to help and help you get on to the next level because it makes me smile. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at, huh?
That's great, Professor. I love the professor. He can school us on all kinds of different subjects, from the street to the school to the world of higher education, and then everything underneath. When we start getting underneath the story, between the story, underneath that story, that's where the professor really shines.
That's
That's what
right.
I
That's
say.
right. We can get into some things. So, Unc, what are we going to get into today, man?
I just want to get into this. I want to see us become an antidote to this cruelty, division, and fear that's going on in this country and in this planet. That whole idea of us here in this mighty middle is bringing people together. And you and I were just talking, like, how do you bring people together? And who has been successful, and what or who have been successful in the past in bringing people together? Tell us, school us on that a little bit, Professor, will you?
Well, when I look at when we come together as a community or as a society, it's sad to say, but it's almost like a disaster or like a common enemy that brings us together, right? Like struggle and strife. I think about the 60s and 70s most recently, right? When people are fighting for civil rights, there was that civil rights fight was actually a fight of the people coming together to go against the oppression that they were feeling, like we are now, the people who are preying on us and taking advantage of us and make us fight against each other. Think about they were making white and black fight against each other as opposed to just allowing, good neighborhoods and good homes for everybody. So like when I think about that, if we go think about a community that maybe get hit with a flood, a community that gets hit with an earthquake, people come together. Now, see, something like that in the Hawaii island is very prevalent to me, and because we are very community out here, because we all live on an island in the middle of nowhere, so we all kind of work together out here. Um, when I think about on a grand scale of how we can come together, I would like us not to have some sort of cataclysm to come together. Let's just take our current standards of where we're at, our current living situations, our current financial situations. Let's let that be the catalyst today. What do you say, huh?
Yeah, and maybe you hear Bella agreeing with the professor down there, or either that or the male ladies here. So, I agree with you. I think the fire that you guys had in Hawaii, that terrible, tragic fire brought this whole community together. I know in communities where there have been tornadoes, hurricanes, and so on, people can come together. But I also have to say, I was quite disappointed because I thought something like the pandemic would bring people together in support of each other, but it turned out to make people even more divided. So why do you think that was?
You know, that was a very interesting flip when you examine like the politics of it. Again, you always say that the politics are divisive by nature. And so there was politics involved in it instead of just humanity and caring and health. I think everybody was on the same page for about a week. You know what I mean?
Nobody wanted to get the damn COVID shit.
Yeah, nobody.
First of all, some people didn't believe COVID even existed. Okay, so some people were like, it's a hoax. And I have a friend who was an emergency room nurse. She said, even as they were putting the trach in, even as they were putting in the intubation, they were denying that they had any illness.
And I think there's just a lot of misinformation that divided us, right? Because people have chosen camps and sides. And the information that they get. Remember, like back in the George W. Bush days, people would choose Fox News or CNN, and those would be different information outlets. They would input, different sides of information. But then the Daily Show started to mix that information, and people in the current culture from 2010 and on were able to kind of like get their information from multiple sources. But it would seem that right about before COVID started, people started separating again to these certain corners, and that's where they got that information, and it kept us divided. And nobody, some people think Fauci's just an evil guy, and other people think he was trying to save the world. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I just know that, that really brought us apart as opposed to really worrying about what was going to help us get through it. And then when we look back, now we're looking back and we're saying, okay, our kids got damaged with no education and no socialism or socializing. And then people are still we got people who are still wearing masks right now, some who are still like, I never believed it happened. Like nobody came together.
Some people have long COVID, they still have symptoms and so when we talk about this uniting, we talk together about, a disaster or a catalyzing event can bring people together, right?
Right.
So like you think about all these movies where alien invasion suddenly brings together the Russians and the Americans. What?
Project Bluebeam.
Yeah. Okay. So keep it light, Professor. So you got your common enemy. That's what brings people together. You got a vision. That's one thing we haven't talked about, which is a vision of what is possible. And so, to a certain extent, you can say when Obama was running with the hope and change thing, I think that brought a lot of people together, even though it wasn't very clear what that hope and change was actually going to be.
I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's what started my research last night and this morning on coming together. Because when we talk about politics, a lot of people from both sides, Republican and Democrat, went for Obama. But then as soon as Obama was out, man, people took real strong opposition corners. And a lot of the black community tend to feel like, oh man, we got that black guy out of here. We're never letting that happen again. And they just went this Trump side and, things got real rough again. And I wonder why. Why do you think that is? Hey, if you're listening, jump in the chat and tell us why you think it is. Why do you think people jumped sides from Obama right back to the Republican side or hardcore Republican for that matter? Or
I know it's crazy.
People who were working together are no longer working together once he was out of there.
I know it doesn't make sense to me. In fact, we can have a longer conversation about that whole thing. But I also believe that people can come together if there's a strong leader, and that sometimes that can be good, and sometimes it can be bad. In other words, you got your David Koresh's and your Jim Jones and such like that, so they brought a bunch of people together, but by doing that, they alienated everybody else because that's now we're talking about cults, right?
Right.
And we're talking about this kind of, situation where people unite around a strong leader, but everybody else is opposed.
Well,
so
I'll jump in academically and just say ethnocentrism can be very powerful. And so that's what happens with that type of leader in a cult situation. But you now are bringing me back to that Obama concept where maybe he was just a really good leader at the time when everybody was trying to get out of the Iraq war and was kind of tired of that kind of approach. So maybe that was the common vision and a strong leader, Obama and getting out of war, But so
but I got a question for you about that too. Professor, because so maybe some of our black friends who are watching here, like, I don't understand why black people don't form their own party in this country. I mean, if I was a black person and I'm a lifelong, I'm a, no, man. I mean, is the Democratic Party delivered? Has it really delivered for black people? I mean, it's delivered a little bit.
It's hot sauce in her purse, so And Joe Biden says you're not black if you don't vote for him, so
And and Trump says, "Oh, I got my black people."
Yeah.
I mean, like, and like, okay, look, the truth is that, and we know human nature, people act against their best interest all the time. We've talked about this. We talked about cognitive dissonance. We've talked about these kind of things.
Yeah.
So we know it's real, but I just don't get it. Like, how is it like if you want power, if we're talking about creating power comes from uniting together, right?
Right.
If one person's just yelling in the wind, that don't mean nothing. But if 2, 3, 5, 100 people start, chanting, man, things can happen. And we know, from history that it only takes 2.5 or 3% of the population in a country to actually create real change. I mean, we saw it with gay marriage. We saw it with the, abortion. We saw it with civil rights movement and such. And we see it around the world. So it's like, it don't take that many people.
No,
if the mighty middle, even if a small percentage of the mighty middle came together and said, enough of this bullshit, enough of this bullshit on the Democratic Party, enough of this bullshit in the Republicans, as my friend's daughter used to call them, let's unite together and see what is best for everyone, not just for the rich people. What is best for the people and the future and the planet itself.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think I want to share. That's why we are here. That's why we are having these conversations of interesting topics along the way, because the mighty middle, we are constantly being forced to go against our neighbor. We got to work 40 hours a week or whatever it is you work to pay your bills. And then you come together and then you come home and you're inundated with messages all day. Some you believe, some you don't believe. I will ask you this. How do you know what you know? How do you know what you know?
Great question. How do you know? And that's why we come back in the mighty middle, that it's not about opinions.
That's right.
It's about your lived experience. So I don't know what it's like to be an African-American man or woman in this country. And I have friends and such, but I'm not wearing those shoes, right? And so I want to know your lived experience. Your opinion is of very little value to me. Because everybody, they're like a-holes, right? Everybody's got at least one of them.
Right, at least one. Well, yeah. But the idea of us coming together to share our experiences and will help us have a better understanding of how to approach these problems. And that's what we're trying to do, is just kind of address these problems. So what is a problem that you see in your community? What is a problem that you see nationally that you think, through your experience, you have some ideas that maybe can address them or help bring people together around that topic? That's what we're kind of trying to get at here with the Mighty Middle. We're the Mighty Middle. You're the Mighty Middle. Remember that. Join the Mighty Middle. All right, what's next on the page today?
I want to, throw in with what you're saying, which is something's happening. Something's going on in this country. You talked about this kind of divisiveness, but divisiveness means picking a side. And now more and more people are like, man, I voted for that guy, but I'm not so sure anymore. Or I voted for him, I voted for her. Now, or I listened to that station, I listened to that we've been talking about podcast. You were talking about the proliferation of voices, right?
Right.
So there's the proliferation of opinion, but very little actual lived experience and even less wisdom, right? So we're trying to, as a Buddhist, I'm trying to understand what is wisdom. What is knowledge is one thing, because knowledge, you can come at knowledge all different ways depending on where you're standing. But where's the wisdom? Wisdom to me, when I was asking myself, what is wisdom? Wisdom is the application of knowledge for good. That's how that's my personal definition.
Application of knowledge for good is wisdom. I like that. Application of knowledge for good is wisdom. So what is your wisdom? Do you have wisdom you can share? I like that.
Yeah. We want to know what your wisdom is. And I'll tell you, what our wisdom is that we believe in you. We believe in your ability and our collective ability to make positive change, okay?
Right.
And we believe in our ability to self-reflect and go, okay, some of the shit that I thought was so just ain't so. And some of the things I believed, hey man, I voted Democratic. I checked. I was a Democratic election judge in Chicago. I checked that box and then finally I'm like, now wait a minute. Who are these people? What do they stand? This, by the way, important thing, which is, you know, people make lots of promises about what they're going to do, but what I want to know is who are you? What are you going to be? What is your are your basic values and principles that you're going to express through this action that you're promising you're going to do? Because otherwise you're just another jamoke throwing some shit in the sky, and it's like, or just spewing some stuff. But if I don't believe that you have the character, if I don't believe that you have the strength, the wisdom and compassion, right, to actually be the kind of person we need to make change in this country, then I don't know why I should support you. I don't care what label you have.
Right, and you
What
just
do you think,
described the leader,
Professor?
you know. Well, I think that's right, and I think you're right on time. I think that we're all going to have these experiences. We're going to make these choices, and we're going to learn from those experiences, right? I've worked on political campaigns as well, both for Democrat and Republic. One, just for the job. Two, for the experience to kind of see how these certain kind of campaigns work. And so from that, I'm able to learn. And when you're talking about how we can get behind and support some things. I'm thinking about true characteristics of leaders, right? Now, some leaders, they say, are naturally born. Some are victim of circumstance, right? They would say that Giuliani, after the towers fell, when he was able to unite New York, sorry, I apologize, that it was just timing. Right. There's a
Right.
lot of timing when it comes to leader, the right person, the right time, the right voice that will make a leader. Other times there are people who are naturally born leaders, and, Babe Ruth, I'll take it back to sports. Babe Ruth was a leader. I always think about Charles Barkley. That's a leader's non-leader leader. I'm not a leader
Well,
for your.
I think about John Wooden, man. John Wooden at UCLA.
Okay. Yeah.
I think about Wooden. And these, so, but going back to Giuliani for a sec, there's one of my, puzzles, because he was a hero in 9/11, and then something happened. I don't know, he got hit by lightning or he lost a few screws or something, and the next thing I know, he's completely off the trolley, man.
Well, I
And
wonder.
now he's,
Our experience with him is that we didn't really see all of him. We saw him in a moment in time, and with his attributes that he had, it was a leader for that time that united. But who all he was, from the lawyer and everything in New York and all of that stuff, that all came out over time. And then we're able to see it in multiple contexts. For that one context and that one moment, it worked. But in the other context, it didn't work for all of us. Maybe
okay, that's an interesting point, which is, this is not uncommon in emergency situations, is that emergency situations bring out the best or the worst in people, right? And maybe in the case of Giuliani, it brought out the best of him. Then he went back to the mean, and the mean was pretty fucking mean,
Yeah.
and I mean ugly and mean,
There's
right?
another example, Nagel, I think his name is Nagel, the mayor of New Orleans during the mayor of New Orleans during Katrina. He
Okay.
was another Giuliani figure in the moment, fighting and yelling and screaming on TV for the money and for help. And then about 3 or 4 months after all of it, after the dust kind of settled, or at least quiet down in the media, the dust has never settled. I still work with people in New Orleans today that work on this project of housing and the housing that was destroyed. But then he ended up getting corrupt charges and all money funneling and things. So, it just... even if you're a bad person, at that right moment, those character elements might align, and then boom,
Well,
I do want to. That's one of those things that we are dealing with now in 2026, folks. We can see a bigger picture than we've ever been able to see before. Right? The amount of information that we have and the amount of context clues that we have from the past and to the present, and being able to put things into perspective now. That's the information. Now, I know we're going to talk about it on another time, about like the disinformation, campaigns that are out there. But there's a lot of information, and we can get a bigger picture. We can say, okay, this happened here and people acted this way, and this happened here and people acted this way. We could never put that picture together before like we can now in 2026. So that's a blessing to be born in this time. You know what I mean? All right.
well, and also I think it speaks to the complexity of human character. which is like, in Buddhism, we talk about the 10 worlds from hell, hunger, animality, anger, all the way up to learning and realization and enlightenment. And this idea that we go back and forth between these worlds, which means we all have the potential to be in hell, which means, powerlessness and suffering and causing other people suffering. And we all have the potential to be in enlightenment, which is, to be in a place of wisdom, compassion, courage, and so on. And I think that sometimes circumstances bring out a different world than we've seen in somebody, right? That, like we talking about Giuliani in this case, and then they revert to the mean. And the mean is like what their regular life condition in, which might be animality, which is the law of the jungle, where you cower under the strong, but then you dominate those who are weaker, like that and shit. And at the same time, though, I believe that we all do possess these higher worlds of learning and realization and, even enlightenment, and that we can tap those worlds. Those worlds are available to us, but a lot of the time we spend swilling around in the lowest worlds, hell, hunger, animality, anger, that kind of shit. And so, I do believe that we have the potential. And I think you're talking about examples where somebody might pop, like because of circumstance,
Yeah.
right? Like Katrina is a good example. There were a lot of people who were heroic, right? Who made heroic effort to save other people, but you would have never expected that, certainly not based on their previous actions. And there are also people who you think they're in these higher worlds, but man, they plummet. The whole Trump Epstein thing is all about people who we thought were like the tippy top of society, the cream, the intellectuals, the business leaders, the greatest creative minds, and they're fucking children. I mean, it's fucking horrific. Sorry
Yeah.
no, I'm the guy who's bringing it down. Sorry,
Yeah,
Professor.
yeah. It's just it's hard. It's hard when you think about that, and they've done such a good disinformation campaign on that, and who's involved and who's not, and it's Democrats and Republicans. So again, it's important that we focus on the mighty middle here to get rid of to not focus on what's going on with the elites or the polarization that they create for that. Because even when we think about that topic, we're thinking about the caste system, right? The uppers.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
let's just focus on us. You know what I mean? Let's focus on what we
I'm
got to
with you.
do in our experience here, because they're gonna, because we can. That's the thing, man. It's not even just on that topic a little bit. It's not even the topic of like we can all agree that diddling is bad. I mean, I hope we all can fucking agree on that. But then like but can we agree on like grape soda and like who all went to the island and stuff like that? Like no can. People want to mince this kind of shit. So if we just focus on the task at hand of like bringing us together and breaking through the caste system, bullying that we have to deal with on a daily basis, man, right? Like there's real shit going on. There's ticks out there stopping people from eating meat. There's people who are losing their land. The banks are taking over properties like, BlackRock. Like there's actual shit going on. We got a trillionaire in the house now, man. There's a trillionaire going on. Like, what the fuck's that mean?
Yeah, and so that
Do
I
these
know.
things we know even actually mean or affect us, our lives in any way?
Yeah, well, and you're right. One of the things that we talk about is this idea of what is within our control. Well, my reaction is in my control. I may not be able to control what somebody's doing in the White House or they're doing in Congress. I'm not in Congress. I'm not in the White House, but I can control my reaction to it and how I respond. And if I choose that I'm not happy with that, then I can create my own podcast called The Mighty Middle with the Professor, and we can start getting some stuff going here, or I can sit in a funk and take it out on the dog or my wife or the neighbors or whoever, or blow up at some stranger for no reason because I'm carrying all this unhappiness around that has been pushed into me by all of these communication channels that I'm exposed to.
Right, and that's exactly what's happening now. When we've already been known about it before the COVID, right? When we started to get into the movie, like the social experiment and things like that. When people start understanding what's going on in Facebook and Twitter and how the algorithms are meant to keep us more frustrated than actually happy, they're going to show you more angsty stuff that you don't agree with than they would with like puppies and kittens. You know what I mean? So it is up to us. I bring that back to when you were talking about the lower and higher worlds. for people who don't understand Buddhist concepts, what Unc was trying to say is that, you can you can live in those higher worlds of happiness, or, what we call heaven, or, and be smiling all day and driving your car, smiling and singing a song, and someone cut you off. You're like, motherfucker. And immediately that fast, someone cut you off and you get that angry, you just drop the world real fast. And then if you just like let it go, if you can just let it go, be like, oh, he must have to poop, and just keep driving along and just try to keep it stilly, then you can stay in that world. But if you hold on to that and then you just kind of builds and festers, that's what we're doing with all of these worldly topics right now, or domestic topics right now. We can hold on to those and really let those things fester when they're not really they're not affecting our daily lives. And in fact, let's focus and hold on to the things that do affect our daily lives so we can affect daily change.
That's right. And, I also want to address, people who are haters. I know there's some haters watching this, because we're doing something that you're not doing. Now you want to hate on us, right? But I got some news for you. Like, that hate don't impact us. But the Buddha said that hate is like holding a bag of acid. It burns the holder. It's not burning me, because I ain't reading your shit, right? The professor and I, we don't have time for that. No. We want you to find out, why are you full of hate? Why are you so angry? What is making you? It's not me and the professor, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But if you can release that anger, if you can find a way to become curious instead of angry, then you can move from being miserable to being curious, which is a big step up in the world, right?
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, it's a daily exercise, folks. It's a daily exercise to no different than going to the gym every day, to try to focus on being positive, try to focus on being curious and exploring different things, and recognizing when you're falling in that hate mode or your dislike mode, what I mean? But I will say this, what we are doing here with the Mighty Middle is to bring people together. So even the haters are welcome. Come on, bro. I'll change your whole world. You know what I mean? I'll fuck your world up.
That's right. Hang with us. With us. Just be curious. Curious.
Yeah,
we're curious.
Even if you got some questions that you think you're going to slip us and flip us up, try us. You know what I mean? We got you with positivity all day. Speaking of positivity, Unc, I know that there's a heavy topic that you think you want to shed some light to, but I want to preface this by saying, Unc, you have 6 steps that you want to share with young men on how to get their shit together and change their life, because you care deeply about improving the young men in this country to build a strong male fabric moving forward. So please give us a recap of your 6 steps, and then let's get into what's weighing on you today.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so thanks, Professor. I'm going to refer you to one of our other episodes, and we also, I think we cut it in one of the shorts.
That's right.
Is, Uncle Marcus.
The link is down below.
The 6 steps to getting your shit together. You can check that out, because we want to keep it tight here. But I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things in thinking about those 6 steps to getting your shit together, a friend of mine was saying to me, well, my son, he's home from school. He didn't really graduate. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He's playing a lot of video games, smoking a lot of pot. And I'm worried about him, because even the 6 steps, he's like not necessarily motivated to even do those 6 steps. And he said, I'm worried, that, because I read about young men who have, suicidal ideation, man, that they think their life is meaningless. And I'm like, oh man, we've all known somebody who's either tried to hurt themselves, right, or even succeeded. And that's so heartbreaking. So I want to talk directly to young men who are wrestling with the whole purpose or meaning of their life right now, right in this moment. If you're suffering, if you're struggling, if you're thinking about hurting yourself, man, your Uncle Marcus is here to tell you, don't do it. First thing, number 1, if you have those kind of feelings, you got to call that National Suicide Hotline. That's 988. But I want you to understand something, guys. Mood swings are natural. We all feel down. And it's because we feel down that we can appreciate what up is. But there is this idea that down is the end in itself and there's no way out of it is completely incorrect. Every one of us, me, the professor, everyone you talk to has been through ups and downs and serious downs. So I'm going to give you a couple steps. Is it okay, Professor, if I give a couple tips here?
Yeah, take this time to go ahead and preach to the young men. Get them up and moving.
Guys, if you are feeling so down that you can barely get out of bed, if you're feeling so down you're thinking about hurting yourself, okay? There are a couple things you can do right now, okay? Number one, okay, yeah, I told you called that hotline 988, but you get outside, go outside, turn this off right now. Go outside, breathe some air, do some jumping jacks, do 10, 20 jumping jacks, do some push-ups, just move your body. Just moving your body gets the endorphins going, can change your entire perspective, right? Call someone you trust, okay? Pet a dog, find a dog or a cat. Just look into a dog or a cat's eyes. I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna change you. Just petting that dog, listen to that cat purr, put in your lap like that. Start a gratitude journal. Okay, what are you grateful for? I remember when I was a newbie Buddhist, I had a friend in LA. He was thinking about, and I took him to this wise Buddhist elder professor. And the first thing he said to him is, what do you appreciate in your life? And the guy said, well, nothing. That's why I'm so down. And he said, well, did you have breakfast this morning? And the guy said, yeah. Did someone make that cereal for you? Yeah, somebody put it in the box. That's right. How about when you came over here, did you see a tree, a flower? Did you see a baby? Did you see a kid? Yeah. He said, do you have anyone in your life who's been kind to you? And I'm thinking, it's me. I'm the one who drove you here. Yeah. He's like, well, maybe. He wasn't thinking about me. That's okay. We're still friends. And so, have gratitude, any gratitude. The gratitude is the antidote for depression, my friends. And then make someone else's life a little better. If you feel like shit, the quickest antidote to raising your life condition is helping buy somebody coffee, give some homeless guy a buck, smile at a neighbor, say hello to a stranger. I'm telling you, this shit sounds simple, but it will raise your life condition, okay? And then there's a great book, Kamal Ravikant wrote a book where which I recommend, and in which he was at the absolute door of desperation, and it came to him that he should repeat to himself as a mantra, I love myself. Now, this is some deep shit, okay? He said, love yourself like your life depends on it. That's the name of the book. I love myself. I love myself. I'm like the little engine that could. I love myself. I love myself. You'd be surprised, man. That can also jack up your life condition. And then just remember, you're not alone. You are never alone, okay? And to tell you that you're really not alone, I want you to know that your Uncle Marcus has your back. And I'm serious. So if you get that down and you got no one else that you can talk to, you can talk to me. And you can even have this number. And this is a real number I'm going to give you. It's 858-480-7703. That is a number that will reach me. Okay? So if you are that desperate that you got nobody to talk to, I want you to know that your Uncle Marcus has your back. You got it? Write that number down. And I think the professor will put it up later.
I'll put that up later and post it. First, thanks for sharing. Thanks for caring. You're appreciated, and I hope if anyone that does hear this and they are stuck in a position to take your words serious, I know he'll answer the phone if you call, because that's the kind of person he is. That's the type of man he is. He cares about young men out here putting in the effort. You said a lot, man, and I hope people really recognize it or even pass the message forward. Because I think that it's really important. I think that there is a lot of conversation these days about people unaliving themselves due to the environment just playing psychic warfare on them, right? The social media, the topics, the things that aren't really relevant. But when you focus on these things that are relevant, like you said, petting a cat or like getting your breakfast, or when you get breakfast, saying hi to somebody, it made me think. I wanted to say this: people who have a job. Like my brother's a voice actor, and one of the things that he does is he sits for hours a day practicing saying the same word over and over. And there's nothing that'll make you go mentally crazy than just saying "duh" for 2 hours straight. Duh. You know what I mean? But that effort to do the same thing, that where it might seem silly because you're not getting paid to do it, you're just trying to get better at something, so that maybe someday you can get paid for it or whatever. That's the type of effort that Unc is talking about when it comes to getting yourself out of that funk. It may seem silly to pet a cat. It may seem silly to walk down the street to a random stranger and say hello. And I lived in Seattle for a long time, and I was down in the dumps. I did say hello to strangers, and strangers wouldn't say hello back. You know how you know they're not from Seattle? If they say hi back. That's a non-Seattle person.
Ouch. Ouch.
Hey, you know what I'm talking about. So, but the idea is like make the effort, keep putting that energy out there. I like to look at things like that where like, you keep coming up with zeros, that means you're on the right track. You know, like you go to apply for a job and you don't get the job. That's cool. You got the one negative one out the way that says no, so you can get to the one that's going to say yes. Same kind of thing with like not being able to get out of bed or feeling like life is like, you know, like what's the point? Folks, I've slept on park benches, right? Like I've been homeless. Had a medical condition where I couldn't leave the house for years. Like I've gone through some pretty depths, low depths, and Unc was there for me. Unc took my call. Yeah, he knows part of that story. So I just know that it can happen. And anytime that I start to feel a little pressure, I reevaluate like, okay, what's going on? You know, and so one of those things is just to remember like that practice. It's not something you can just do in a couple of days. It takes momentum. It takes a day after day after day. Do a push-up, get some air, get some stretch. Put your bare feet on the grass. That's real simple. I don't care how cold it is. Put your bare feet on the grass. I know someone right now that's going through a loss and a very close loss, and it's hurting them very deeply. And I said, put your feet on the grass. And I got a call. I did it today. And I said, do it tomorrow. Put your feet on the grass. And I did it today. And when they say it, they got a little smile in their face when they said, I did it today. Because it's silly to them, right? But silly is good. Silly is light. Silly is fun. So just remember, it's anything. It's all temporary. You know what I mean? You talk to a holistic naturopath doctor, they'll tell you that nothing's not fixable. Your whole system wants to get back in balance and heal itself. And that's just mentally too, you know? Now, we're not doctors or any of that, so I don't want to go on that. But I do want to say what Unc was saying about getting out there, calling that number, even calling his number, getting fresh air, stretch. I don't care how unhealthy you are. Do a stretch in a chair. I don't care how much you can't walk. Put one foot in front of the other. You know, that's kind of the thing that'll help. That's the thing that'll help. Say, I did that today. You know, folks, in communication theory, there's a concept of the self and self-esteem. And I like to use this example a lot, but if you just set a little goal and you accomplish that goal, you will build that self-esteem. And I mean a little goal, like not like I'm going to walk 5 miles. No, I'm going to walk 5 minutes. And you do that, by the time you go to bed at night, like, oh yeah, okay, tomorrow I'm going to walk 5 minutes. And before you know it, you'll walk 10 minutes. That's the kind of thing, if you apply that to all things, whether it's writing or saying hi to people and engaging with people, that's the kind of stuff that will spill over and reach that Malcolm Gladwell tipping point, you know? All right. We good, on? We covered it?
Yeah, that's great stuff. Great stuff, Professor.
All right.
And, I hope that if you're listening to us, and that you'll become part of this mighty middle, that you'll find a home with us here, that you'll share your ideas, you'll share your thoughts with us, your lived experience, your solutions, and, and your heart with us, because frankly, everything comes down to the heart. We spend way too much time in the head, but ultimately everything comes down to the heart.
Yeah, deep down, intuitively, you have an idea. So share it with us and connect with us, right? That's where we're at today. We're all about connection today. It's a beautiful weekend. We're connecting. We're having a good time. And, yeah, there's going to be some silliness this weekend. Unc, all right, I'm switching gears now. I'm going silly. Unc, there's a White House fight. Are you going to watch it?
No, man. No, I'm not watching. I mean, I'd rather watch the Knicks,
I almost feel like we have to watch it. I don't know. It's like 4th of July fireworks or something.
I would watch it if the orange pumpkin was in the ring. I'd watch somebody take him on. But no, I'm not at all interested in that, my friend. Not at all.
They're talking bad weather, lightning. They're talking. I think Kalshi has attacks. Like there's all kinds of things being bet on that. So it would be kind of curious. Like it's just a spectacle, It's just like a clown.
Yeah, I know.
So
It's like, yeah, exactly. It's a spectacle, a meaningless spectacle.
But that's
a
what we're
waste
talking
of our
about. The
money.
meaningless spectacle. If you know what you're getting into, then you're not going to let it weigh on you and get worked up and upset about it. You just, you take the pageantry and
Yeah,
silliness for what it is.
exactly.
Yeah. All right, you good? You good?
I'm good. All right, you good, Professor?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm ready to get on and have a nice weekend. I'm looking forward to just hanging out and enjoying the outdoors a little bit. I hope everyone gets outside this weekend, even if it's raining out where you're at. Uh, let's see. You usually end us with a quote. You got a quote for us today?
You know, I was thinking about the quote that I used before, which is if you get sucked into the BS blender, you're either a fool, a mule, or a tool. And my friend said, dude, like that's kind of harsh. And I was like,
Yeah.
it is a little harsh,
Yeah.
but that's the point is that we're not that. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be a fool, a mule, or a tool. What we want to do is, we want to school you, not fool you, right?
That's right. That's right. That's why it's important to be alert, look alive, and act like you know. Stay ahead of the game. You know what I mean? Be alert, look alive, and act like you know. All right, brother, we're out of here. Aloha to everybody. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll post another one next week. Be on the lookout for the shorts. Make sure to pay this forward. If anything stood out to you, send it to a friend. We're out, everybody. Peace and
Love.